Okay, SOTC 52, this is number 4. It's a chapter. Each one of these chapters, the idea behind it is to give you a different perspective. Like we talk about, every week I'm going to try to get all these done. But, the thing is about this chapter 4 is it's called God Has Charts, right? And if you've ever flown an airplane, or if you've ever been in a boat, or maybe you've been in the back of a bus looking at some map, I don't know, but the charts pretty much tell you where you're going and what you're doing. Unfortunately for us, or fortunately, maybe if we knew where we were going, we'd be in really, some deep yogurt. But the bottom line is God knows where we're going. He has a chart for your life. And if you follow him, and if you trust him, and if you love him, he sees what's coming, and he's not going to have anything come by your life that's not ultimately going to be good for your life. See, God has a perspective of eternity in mind. He doesn't care so much about what's going to happen to you tomorrow or the next day. He really cares about spending an eternity with you. He loves you. That's why he created you. And he has a plan for your life to spend forever with you. So the events in your life are charted by him, right? So in hindsight, you can look back and you can say, well, yeah, I'm glad that happened, or I'm glad this happened, or if that didn't happen, this wouldn't happen. I mean, there's a million different ways to look at it. But I remember when I was in the prison at San Quentin, you talk to guys there, half the time you hear people say, man, going to prison was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got all of the things that were distracting me in my life taken out of the way, and it's where I found the Lord. You talk to some guys, the most heart-wrenching things in the world sometimes are the best things that could possibly happen to you. I remember some years ago I'd made some money, and I really had an idea that I wanted to sail the world. I loved to sail, and I had enough money to buy me a new sailboat. I had a buddy of mine who was going to go with me, and basically we were going to step out of everything that we were doing and take a year and just sail around the world. That's what we were going to do, and that was our plan. But that wasn't on God's chart, see? But I didn't know that. I wasn't serving the Lord at the time. I was just following my own whims. So the Lord sent by this gal who totally and completely captivated my heart. And well, the bottom line was there was no way I was going to go sailing around the bay for 3 or 4 days without seeing her, yet going around the whole world. And so he sent her by on his chart to stop me from going and doing something that he didn't want me to do. And never mind the fact that the same girl ripped my heart out with a rusty hay hook, slapped it on the counter, and fed it to me for lunch later. It was like, what was that all about, right? It was very, very painful, but I never did end up going around the world. And what did happen is I ended up with having one of the largest prison ministries in the country when I stayed in town, and I stayed with the people I knew that loved me, and I let the Lord lead me and guide me and direct me. So there's different ways of looking at things from the good side or the bad side, but when you know that God has a chart and you trust him with that chart, then you don't rush things. You don't try to put your desires and what you want to do in front of what he wants to do, right? There's this guy, Gideon, in the Bible. You can read about him in Judges 7. He wasn't a real brave guy. He was actually hiding when the angel approached him, the Bible says, trying to get some food. And then God told him what he wanted to do, and he said, okay, well, if you'll make my pillow tonight wet with dew and the ground dry, I'll know it's you. So God did that. And then he said, well, okay, that's cool, but if I could just ask you one other thing, if you can make the ground wet and my pillow dry, then I'll really know it's you. And so God did that. So he's got 32,000 men, and he's facing 135,000 Midianites. They had come to kill them and to take their town. So the Bible says that he went to sleep that night before he was to attack, because I think he went to sleep because he was just so depressed. Sometimes stuff happens to you, and you just, man, I just got to lay down and let this pass by. He wasn't feeling so hot about what was going on, but he made the commitment, but he didn't know how he was going to do it, right? But see, God had this plan charted. So here's what happened. This is really a cool story. You can read about it in the 7th chapter of Judges. What happened was God said, hey, look, Gideon, I know you're a little depressed. He woke him up because I know you're having a little trouble with your faith. God didn't hammer him because he didn't have faith after he did the whole pillow wet thing, ground dry thing. He didn't hammer him. He knew he was depressed. He was still scared. He said, Gideon, look, he said, take your servant Purah down to the Midianite camp. Now, that they got to sneak around down there, because if they walk down there and these Midianites see him, they're going to kill him, right? Take your servant Purah down there to the camp and listen to what those guys are saying. And then that will encourage you, because these guys, I'm moving on them, making them scared of you. So take your servant Purah. Well, if you look up the word Purah, and this is a trip, there was a trip to me. You look up the word Purah, the guy's name, and in the Hebrew, it means foliage or bushes. It means like a limb of a tree. His name actually meant bushes. So basically, God said, take your servant bushes and go hide in the bushes and then listen to what these guys have to say. So God gave him exactly the right guy. His name wasn't Bushes because he was always hanging out in the desert away from the trees. I mean, there had to be a reason why they called this guy Bushes. He was good probably at hanging out in the foliage. So he takes Bushes down there. He hears these guys saying, oh my God, I had a dream last night. This one cat says, well, what was your dream, man? He goes, this giant loaf of bread came down and it flattened the tents and wiped us out. And his buddy says, well, that means God's with Gideon. We're all going to be toast. So Gideon, all of a sudden, now he gets jacked up. He goes back. He sends a bunch of guys home. And now he's standing on 300 guys to fight 135,000. That means each guy has to kill 450 guys. One on 450 in order for them to succeed. But see, he didn't care because God had walked him through the whole pillow thing, the ground thing. God had walked him through seeing the angel thing, and now God sent him a servant Purah. And at the last minute, he takes him down. And you think about this. What is it about these guys being scared to fight Gideon that gave him so much faith? I don't know what would have given me a lot of faith, but see, God has a chart for Gideon. He knew exactly what Gideon needed to hear in order to accomplish what God had given him to do. See, God has charts, man. He's got it all planned out. He knows where the shallow water is, where the deep water is. He knows that sometimes a heartbreak will do you some good. So he knows that sometimes having not enough money to pay your bills is going to do you good. He knows that sometimes maybe things aren't just right with you and you get a little bit scared. But he knows the totality of all that on his chart is going to take you where you need to go. God has charts, man. Believe it.